And thank you. Now to a breaking news update. Police are looking for the shooter who killed a pregnant woman and then left her body in the middle of the street.
And now Chicago police are telling us that pregnant woman was allegedly trying to rob a driver when she was shot. Just disturbing.
Since my lovely fiance agreed to marry me last year, I have been thinking about my future a lot. Been thinking about the wedding, been thinking about starting a family, and I've also been troubled by the idea of her being pregnant with our first child in the future and going to work in New York City and possibly being victimized by the rampant criminality that was going on. So when I saw the story of Genesis Escobar, which was reported as a 7 months pregnant woman being killed in a robbery, I was really troubled by this story. However, I decided that I was going to persevere, look into what happened, and what I cannot believe, what is unfathomable, is that Genesis Escobar was in fact the robber. She was killed by people that she was robbing, and the story is even more chaotic and more crazy than you could possibly imagine. Now, before we get into this story, which of course involves insane criminality, an absolutely scumbag of a boyfriend, and of course a soft on crime criminal justice policy that put this woman in this position to commit this robbery, this video is sponsored. So let me toss it to the sponsor, then we'll come back over here and we'll talk about it on the other side. Silver's value typically relied on its aesthetic appeal and its rarity, but the thing is, silver's absolutely crucial to today's economy, and that might surprise you. New technology like solar panels and all kinds of different things use silver as a component. This is an additional reason why having some precious metals, specifically silver, in your IRA is a good idea moving forward. And if you start a qualifying IRA this month, you will be gifted an American Eagle 1 ounce silver coin. It comes in this super awesome display case. It is a great memento, and it helps you realize that you're holding something real for retirement in the future. So go over to noblegoldinvestments.com or call them at 877-646-5347. Talk to an expert. That's noblegoldinvestments.com, noblegoldinvestments.com.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Very unusual and devastating circumstances surrounding this shooting. Police say that the shooter took off, leaving hundreds of dollars in cash on that victim's body. The victim, 21-year-old and 7 months pregnant, was shot multiple times after getting into a car, and police saying demanding money.
So the first thing that I have to take exception to is the fact that the local news media is referring to Genesis Escobar as the victim in this scenario, while in the same breath, they are acknowledging that she entered a vehicle with the intention of robbing its occupants, demanding money, and they're not clear on whether or not she was armed, but since they're saying that there were shots fired from outside of the vehicle and from within the vehicle, and based on other reporting that I found, it seems rather likely that she was in fact armed. The only victim in this case, in my opinion, is the unborn child who at 7 months was actually a viable life outside of the womb. But unfortunately, Genesis decided that this would be a good idea. And when you go to rob people for money, a likely response to that in any place in the United States of America is to be shot for your trouble. So she initiated the crime, she ended up getting shot, and her unborn child ended up paying the consequences of her horrible actions. And one of the other things that I noticed about this is that after she was killed, they decided that they were going to drop money on top of her body because that's what she was asking for when she gave up her life in this stupid ass robbery. And the local news kind of leaves some key information out that we're going to have to go to because it actually is significantly worse than you think.
We're told shots were fired both from outside of the car and from people inside of the car. In this video, you can see a big crime scene. This is near Laramie and Montana around 1 o'clock yesterday. Family and friends identifying her as 21-year-old Genesis Escobar. The shooting apparently happened near a family friend's home. They tell us they found Escobar shot in the street after hearing at least 4 gunshots.
They threw a bunch of money on top of her.
What does that represent in your opinion?
I don't know if she was into some kind of trouble.
Now, as they said, they threw money on top of the body, and her friend says, I don't know if she was in some type of trouble, which seems a little bit ridiculous. She's robbing people at 7 months pregnant. Obviously, she's in some kind of trouble, but they wanted to send a message, making me think that the killers in this instance were people that knew Genesis personally. I don't know exactly why they decided to do what they did, but again, this money being thrown on top of the body is actually made significantly worse by additional reporting that we have to get into from the New York Post. And by the way, credit to the New York Post. I cite them a lot on a bunch of different issues. I know they're a tabloid in certain regards, but on certain stories specifically related to crime or things that other media outlets don't want to show or report, the New York Post is a godsend. Now, what makes them a tabloid is that they'll also run a bunch of stories about attractive teacher sleeping with student, where they go through attractive teacher's Instagram and plaster those photos to make you click on it. But in this regard, great reporting. Now, one of the first things that the New York Post article leads off with is that Escobar was actually attempting to rob drug dealers in this instance. Now, the reason why this is absolutely crucial is because it explains how she got in the vehicle in the first place. And also, if you're selling drugs to a 7 months pregnant woman, I'm not going to call you a victim in that scenario, even though the robbery was engaged in by Escobar and her boyfriend. Now, her boyfriend, who is unnamed for some ungodly reason, even though he is a participant in this robbery that led to this woman being killed, again, at 7 months pregnant, decided that he was going to stay in the brave position of being the lookout person as he sent his 7 months pregnant girlfriend into this car with drug dealers in order to rob them for the cash. And after the shooting started popping off and Genesis was wounded multiple times and she laid on the street dying and the drug dealers dropped the cash over her body because that's what she was looking for as a way to mock her, the boyfriend, in his infinite courage, didn't call 911. He didn't pick her up and drive her to the hospital. He decided that it would be appropriate to take some of the cash off the street and then flee the scene of the crime. Again, this man, if you can even call him that, is unnamed in this article, unnamed by the Chicago police, and I can't fathom why, because in my opinion, this could easily be a felony murder situation. They were trying to commit an armed robbery. When somebody dies during the commission of that armed robbery, you can charge people with felony murder. I think the boyfriend, for his absolutely scummy behavior throughout, can also be charged with felony murder, even though the people that they intended to rob were the ones who delivered the killing blow. That's just my opinion. That's how I feel about this situation. But again, it just goes to show you the absolute low level of character involved in every aspect of this story. And when you realize that I opened this with me thinking about taking care of my fiance, you'll realize why this story was so outrageous to me when I read into it further.
We are also updating breaking news on Chicago's northwest side, where police now say a pregnant woman who was shot and killed during a robbery was actually a suspect and not a victim in that robbery.
Now, Escobar, of course, was rushed to the hospital. She ultimately ended up passing away. Her unborn child also did not make it. But what is interesting to me is the fact that this woman has a lengthy criminal history and likely should have been incarcerated at this point in time. And yes, I say that despite the fact that she was pregnant, which is a factor that I seem to care about more, and you seem to care about more, and the media seems to care about more than Genesis Escobar actually did, because she was currently on probation at the time that she was committing this crime, and the probation was for misdemeanor battery. Now, again, misdemeanor battery is misdemeanor battery. It is not a felony. It's a less serious form of battery. But the thing is, when you're on probation for a crime and you continually get rearrested, you're supposed to have that probation violated. And Escobar was currently, at the moment that this happened, under indictment for Grand Theft Auto. So this is a woman who is committing crime after crime after crime while pregnant. And of course, the Chicago legal system, the Cook County prosecutor, isn't doing their damn job and remanding this person, and as a consequence of that, she kept reoffending until it ultimately ended up costing her her life and cost her the life of her unborn child. Now, of course, she had retail theft charges as well, and as we've gone over time and time again, Cook County, like many of these other progressive areas of the country, basically consider retail theft like a sport. It's fun, and if, you get caught, it's no big deal. Those charges were dropped, as well as additional drug possession charges. Any remanding of this woman on her probation would have ultimately ended up saving her life. And while you might think it is cruel to remand a pregnant woman to custody while she's pregnant, In reality, what is actually cruel is leaving this person who continuously offends while pregnant on the street to commit crime after crime after crime due to the fact that you have a complete and utter misplaced empathy. There should have been some empathy for the unborn child. There should have been some empathy for the family members that would ultimately ended up raising this child once this woman got arrested yet again and went to prison on actual charges in the future. But instead, the empathy was for Escobar because, wow, isn't she just a poor pregnant Aladdin? Isn't it so sad that she continuously reoffends time and time again, and she dates such a horrible boyfriend that would leave her on the street bleeding out and take some cash that they sprinkled on her as a way to disrespect her. As you might be able to tell, this story pisses me off to no end. I am disgusted by everyone's behavior in this situation, and I don't understand why, once again, we see these stories out of Chicago that can easily be prevented, yet no one wants to do anything. You have all the red flags, all the warning signs, everything that you would need to know that this person is not in a great place, and that you can have some interventions, at least to save the unborn child, let alone do something for the mother of that unborn child, but yet that just wasn't done. That was not something that was pursued because people are under the misguided impression that the criminal justice system, no matter what, is the thing at fault, and it makes situations worse no matter what, and this is the result of it. This unborn child did not need to die. This person could have been held in jail. They could have had their probation violated. There could have been additional monitoring, but instead, people wanted to say, commit as many crimes as you want, Genesis, because you got knocked up, and we decided that we don't want to hurt your feels because, you know, even though you clearly and obviously make horrible choices, I mean, just look at what her boyfriend did in this situation, sending her in there to be the person doing the robbery, not the lookout, and leaving her for dead on the street while picking up a couple $100, you know, it's fine. Genesis, we just don't want to hurt you. We're just going to allow you to destroy yourself because that's what a progressive society does. I don't like it. You shouldn't like it. It shouldn't be acceptable. I refuse to accept it. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, show me by leaving a like. Subscribe for more content. Follow me on all my social media. Support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the Genesis Escobar story. Till next time.